if you were to dive from a certain jupiter, you don't know who it is.
My first dive was in 700.
When we got to the boat, it really started to sink in, and I don't know if I felt like I was almost going back 40 years.
I think this is maybe one of the few opportunities we'll have to come out here and check this thing out. This is like a marker for us, for all the families.
Getting anything? Should be. I'm backing down over it. I got 120 feet.
So yeah, I'm getting them on the forward machine. It looks like they're right up on top.
This is the wreck. We're now actually coming off of the wreck. You see how the line's getting a little smaller here. So hopefully, since he's out in front of us, he's going to catch the high piece, and we're backing down on it. The electronics here say that the numbers or the coordinates that we're looking for is actually right over there where the anchor line is. So he should be getting something real soon. Got something? Yeah, he's got it.
Right off the bow is where they're at, so the current's going that direction.
The two safety divers, or the two people that we put in the water early on, have the task of hooking us up and making sure that we don't drift off. Because this is very deep and serious sort of diving, the last thing you want to do is unhook from the wreck with people under the boat decompressing. You can't break loose and motor back. So their task was to take our anchor setup and put it on the wreck and lock it down so there's no way the surface boat and all our surface support could go anywhere or accidentally drag the hook. So they came back with the following report. We're hooked up, we're in a good spot, visibility is good, temperature's good, sun's out, full sun, flat day. I couldn't have sketched it out any better. This will be the first time you've seen it since it's in its position.
You're correct.
So it's been 2 years or so since
2
you've
years.
been out here. We jump in together, sort of guide me to those points where you think we can best look up against the light using this as silhouette.
This room up here, the largest room on the tower, the technical support room. I'm helping Al with getting him around the different spots on the wreck. I've been diving this wreck for 27 years, and I'm supplying him with technical support and putting him in the best possible places where he can get some good shots.
You know, shooting from, I mean, if the light is like this, in the first couple of dives, you know, of course I'll get used to the whole mass of the structure, and it is massive, but we're very interested in documenting the structural damage and sort of how could such an accident happen and what contributed to that accident.
You guys looking briefing?
Yeah.
You were just in the water, right?
Straight out.
Yeah, well, join us and let's talk a little bit about it. I'm anxious to hear.
The wreck doesn't look anything like that anymore. From what I can see, you have your picture. There's an angle like this on the deck.
Right.
Now the deck is very close to parallel to the bottom.
The deck is more level than that, or is
The
it
deck is almost parallel to the sand.
Wow.
So there is still an angle to it, but nowhere near like this.
So let's take a look. Thanks very much. That's really helpful. All right,
Okay.
let's go to work here. Our cameras are ready to go, and we're ready to go here. So I'd like to roll over the side here in 15 minutes. Kelly, you good with that? 15 minutes? Most people don't realize the Atlantic is a very, very tough dive site. The bottom where most of these wrecks are found in the Texas Tower is found, nearing 200 feet. So dives on these shipwrecks are really challenging. Extreme cold on the bottom, very deep, requiring lots of decompression. Offshore, 80 miles, remote, deep, cold, and pretty unforgiving business.
Putting a tower out here 76 miles from shore is an engineering feat in itself, and maintaining a structure that's supposed to be stable in a non-stable environment is very difficult. You had a tower that was a weakened structure from the first time it was placed out here. It never really reached its design capabilities. It was like trying to stand up for an extended period of time on a bum leg. And that's basically what the tower had a bad leg that never really healed properly. And when you put that in an environment where you have your typical very nasty northeasterly storms and gales, and in an area that's susceptible to hurricanes, you're looking for a disaster to happen. When I look at the tower, and when I go back and reflect on the material that I looked at and the way that the tower was laying on the bottom, it looked like it went down very violently, and it looked like it went down very fast.
Al, you want to take your weight belt off?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm just breathing a little surface air here.
I saw a ladder on the main deck. I knew right where I was, and I couldn't believe the devastation. Could not believe it.
Did you find the plaque?
Plaque is gone.
Piece of the structure other than, the size of the Texas Tower is interesting. I've heard comparisons to Titanic. It's like a shipwreck, but it's not. I know that if magically the visibility was 1,000 feet, you'd be staring at this thing the size of, sort of parts of the Empire State Building. It's a huge, huge structure. And considering the high drama that went along with losing this incredible structure in the ocean, pretty sobering. I mean, you think about the circumstances surrounding the accident and the human drama that played out there.
You got it, Don?
I'm taking some pictures, and to see all the people here involved in this thing, doing what they're doing, and it's just amazing to me. This thing has grown into something that I just could never believe possible. I met Larry Phelan for the first time.
spent some time up on the top deck here, up in front, watching the air bubbles come up from the divers, because it's it's hard for you and I to picture exactly what's down there, and to see the bubbles come up, and I could see that a diver was here, and a diver was there, and a diver was over here, and trying to imagine the size of the tower, and how it rested on the bottom. And I was dumbfounded by how far these divers were apart from each other, doing their exploration. And I can imagine just the catastrophe when it happened, how violent that must have been with this huge structure, hitting the surface, not like a ship sinking, which is probably fairly quiet. But this thing collapsing into the ocean must have been terrifying.
That night that the tower went down, imagine that night. My father was a repairman on the towers. We knew it was a tough job, especially around middle of January. But now coming out here and lying in my berth, it was pretty rough last night. And the waves were slapping against the bottom of the boat, and you couldn't help think about what it was like that night for them. Before the storm knocked it down. It was an eerie feeling. This boat can go back. That was a fixed item there, and the only thing that could do would go down. And I think everybody thought of that last night at some point in time. Certainly I did. I'm sure Larry did. It must have been terrible.
Where we are, we're swimming along the main flight deck. To the left would be the officer's administration office, and we're just looking around. That's at about 146 feet.
But you're just off of the flight deck, so there's
Yes.
still a lot of tower below you.
Yes, there's 2 decks below us.
Coming back to the cabin and looking at the films is just exhilarating. And then, of course, being on the ship or the boat and standing here and looking out at the bubbles and the divers and getting a perspective for how large the tower is and this looking at, there's no land in sight. It's the thought of what was going on out here while the men were serving on the tower. Just everything is dumbfounding. But the last 2 days have been extremely emotional. I've tried to get off and have my quiet times by myself. Being up here on the bow, just imagining what the divers are looking at, and I would love to be down there doing that. To see things that only a few people have seen. Gives you the urge to learn how to dive.
You start to get an idea, perspective of how huge that leg is. Coming back with the sons of 2 of the people that were lost on the tower makes it a very emotional trip, certainly for them, but certainly for me, because I've felt that I've in a way known their fathers. I've visited their fathers' graves, and for these guys to be able to come back and be there, I feel like I want to help them. I want to make their visit to their dad's gravesite as comfortable as possible.
This is one of those shooting moments where everybody sort of gets into the action. Here's the vessel, here's the anchor, and a scheme whereby we would feed cable and have an HMI, 1200 watt HMI to take inside.
When the tower originally went down, it ended up almost 200 or nearly 200 yards away from its original position, laying on its side. Over the years, it has basically stayed in that position up until about 2 years ago, when finally part of the welds and the floor literally just rusted away, and the large supporting A-leg, which used to hold the tower up, finally punched through like a fist through plasterboard, and the tower structure itself slid down that leg. You're now have to deal with a lot of real deep stuff.
All right, let's do it.
Texas Tower was not a ship. Even though it is classified as a shipwreck, it was never designed or built for watertight integrity, airtight integrity. For all intents and purposes, it's a building that they put out on stilts out in the middle of the ocean. The tower was never built to be in the ocean. It was built to be almost 7 stories above the surface of the ocean. All the doors were regular handled doors. There were no dogged hatches. There were no watertight compartments. It was built like a metal building. So it was susceptible. It would be very susceptible to twisting and tearing and structural deficiencies.
A tragic accident is something that you just, you can't prepare for it. It just hammers you real hard, and then you begin asking questions. Why did this happen? It didn't have to happen. You start second guessing everybody that's supposed to be, on top of things, and you question authority. It's hard to comprehend the complete picture of the tower in the shape it's in now. It looks like a giant grave to me. I know there were no bodies on board, but still, it's the last place those men had their feet on the ground.
I got it. I can't use it.
They'll be hanging on a little nail right aside.
Yeah, right next to it.
They'd probably replace it if you sent it in. Some of the guys brought back some dinner plates and a few cups and things like that. And they shared those things with the relative, the sons. I thought it was a nice gesture. And I do believe this, that the Texas Tower in time will sort of disappear. Again, sort of a rust stain on the seafloor. So to have perhaps some of the personal effects or some of those things that might have been used by relatives or fathers to take back for those that paid such a terrific price, I think is not unreasonable.
Ooh, stuffs.
That was really there.
Oh, yep, the water is sugar.
It looks like the sugar.
Oh,
with
yeah,
the silver
right,
tops.
yeah, sugar bowl, yeah.
That's what it looks like.
I don't have to hardly see any piece of it not to get emotional that, my dad stood there, or, the doorknob that was brought up today. My dad probably had his hands on that doorknob. I'm taking home a sugar shaker. My dad probably used that sugar shaker. Or if he did, and, other family did. So, it's, I really didn't have anything that was personally my father's, or that I can even associate with my father having been physically attached to, and yet now I have a sugar shaker, and I'm sure that, if he didn't touch it, he sure looked at it.
Hey, Larry.
It's tough to be out here, but it's still great to be out here. It's like visiting the cemetery for me. So this is a real large cemetery for me. Well, I hope for the families to achieve some kind of closure. I really can't explain closure, the word closure. Every time I think I've got it, there's something else that I need to do. I may never get closure. Maybe the other families won't get closure. I hope that if they can, they will.
In 40 years since it's happened, I never thought I would be out here. I know the night that Dad, the tragedy happened, it was just my mother and I, near the phone. It's a loss that, you can't prepare for it. It just hammers you real hard. And you can either turn your back to it and say, well, that's the way life is, or you can fight it, or as we did, we turned to Mom and let her lead us, to recovery as much as there was. And I think pretty much, we all recovered, but this brings back a lot that, I think I'll have to recover again. But I think it'll be an easy recovery. I mean, easier because I'll have a lot more knowledge of what happened. And I feel like I wasn't there, but now I can see kind of what happened and have a better feeling for it. It's been great.